Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. It was NFL Sunday, and there were a lot of teams playing for playoff position, so you may have missed some hoops, but that's what I'm here for, to catch you up on everything you missed. So make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos, and let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start off with Phoenix versus Cleveland, which, to be honest, wasn't that great of a game. It was pretty close for the first three quarters. However, in the last frame, the Cavaliers really ran away with things. They were led by Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, each with 22 points. They had a double-double from Jarrett Allen, a 14-8-6 game from Evan Mobley, 14 from Isaac Okoro, 13 from Karis LeVert. It was an all-around team effort for a Cleveland squad that continues to play really well. They've won 3 out of their last 4 games. They're tied with the Bucks for the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't think I really have to tell you how good the Cavaliers are. I've made multiple videos over the course of this season praising them and talking about why I think this team is a legit threat in the East. However, I do want to talk a bit about Phoenix because I've made multiple videos about them this season, but I think every video I've made about them has been praising them and talking about how, hey guys, I'm still here, I'm still a believer, as I've been for the past few seasons. I've been one of the biggest Phoenix Suns believers probably since Chris Paul got sent to the team, because I like Chris Paul, I like Devin Booker, and I like their role players. However, it's reached a point where I don't think I can defend the Suns anymore, because at this point, they're in big trouble. Like I said, Phoenix lost tonight by double digits. They were led by Dwayne Washington Jr., who had a 25-point game, and he's been great in the absence of some of their other players, because the Suns are pretty injury-riddled. Meanwhile, their 2-star guys that are supposed to step up, and Ayton and Bridges had decent games, with Ayton having a double-double, and Bridges finishing with 15 points. But you want to see more out of 2 guys you're paying about max money in the absence of 2 of your other stars in Chris Paul and Devin Booker. You want to see those guys step up, and they just really haven't in the way that you need them to. And the Phoenix Suns are really reeling with this loss. They're 20-21 on the season, below 500. They've lost their last 6 games. They've lost 8 out of their last 11. And since Devin Booker got injured on Christmas, they've only won once. It's been abysmal over that stretch. Over this losing streak, they've been losing by an average of 12.8 points per game, which is abysmal. That is blowout territory consistently on almost a nightly basis. And that a lot goes back to, like I said, Devin Booker, who they're incredibly reliant on. When Devin Booker doesn't play, this team basically falls apart. They look completely lost offensively and defensively. There were multiple nights before he got hurt where they were barely scraping by with wins when he was putting up like 50 points, 40 points. If Devin Booker is not having a superhuman effort most nights, the Phoenix Suns aren't going to win, and you can't have that as a contender. And you see it when he doesn't play. Right now, they're sitting at the 8th seed, tied with the Blazers and the Timberwolves, 2 squads that have faced a lot of scrutiny over the course of this year, but Phoenix is right alongside them. They're also just half a game up on the Lakers, who seem dead in the water at the start of the season, but they've now won 5 straight. The Utah Jazz are just 1 game back, and the Thunder are just 1.5 games back of the Phoenix Suns in the 8th spot. The West is really close, and the Phoenix Suns are on the verge of falling all the way, not just outside of the play-in tournament, but to bottom 3 team in the Western Conference status. This is made especially scary by the fact that Devin Booker isn't going to be back for a little bit longer. He's supposed to be reevaluated on the 25th or 26th with his injury. Now, we don't know if that means he's immediately going to come back and play, but it means that there is a possibility that he's back by the end of January. And up until that 25th date, they have a pretty brutal schedule. They face off against the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Grizzlies, the Nets, the Pacers, the Grizzlies again, and the Charlotte Hornets, as well as the Dallas Mavericks there on January 26th, when Devin Booker could possibly return. That's a brutal schedule. I could realistically see them going 1-8 or 2-7 or 3-6 over that stretch. And any of those results, which all seem more than likely, I would say probably one of them will happen, they're going to fall maybe out of the play-in tournament at that point. And even then, Devin Booker, when he does come back, even if it is right at that moment, you don't know if he's going to need some injury management dates for him to sit out. Chris Paul, like I said, did not play tonight due to a hip injury, and he's supposed to just be day-to-day. But we've seen Chris Paul have injuries that turn into longer ordeals, especially as he gets older, and he still needs games where he sits out and has some maintenance too, so that he's healthy for the playoffs. You also have half of the roster injured guys like Cameron Payne. Cam Johnson has been out for a while as well. He's supposed to be coming back sooner than later, hopefully. Even when they're fully healthy, this isn't a championship caliber team. They're just not. Like I said, they're so reliant on superhero efforts from Devin Booker that they can't win a championship this way. They need a much better second option to take some of that pressure off of him. Chris Paul has been that guy for the past few seasons, but now as he's getting older, his efficiency continues to drop. His quickness isn't quite there. there. His three-point shooting has been good, but offensively outside of that, it's just not been super pretty. He's still a good playmaker and everything, but he's not going to be your championship level second option. DeAndre Ayton has been looked at as a guy that could maybe step up and fill in that role. He hasn't quite done that since being given a max contract this past offseason. He's incredibly inconsistent. Some nights it looks like he's unstoppable, and there are some nights where it looks like he doesn't even want to be there, which, to be honest, he might not want to be there because he wanted out in the offseason. And they say that winning cures everything, but they're not winning right now. They're losing a lot of games, and it's starting to look like he may never turn into that dominant force that we were hoping we would see. Then you have Mikal Bridges, who's another guy that is supposed to step up and is making big money. Another player that I was hoping we would see an offensive explosion from, or at least some sort of like really tangible and meaningful development from him offensively to help take some of that load off of Devin Booker. Once again, that has not been the case. His field goal percentage has dropped a total of 8 points from last season, so his efficiency has taken a massive dive, and part of that comes from him trying to handle the ball more and take more shots to diversify their offense, but it's just not working. It's once again a case of if Devin Booker isn't carrying or Chris Paul isn't doing something special, they're not getting that many wins. Bench-wise, they've got some decent players here and there, but they still need some production, mainly a shot creator off the bench. It just feels like there are so many holes on the roster at the moment. Now, of course, they will get a big boost when CP3, Cam Johnson, and Devin Booker are all back in the lineup, but who knows how long that's going to last, as injuries have kind of become a lasting and consistent theme for this franchise over the past few seasons. They also do have Jay Crowder as a trade asset coming up that can help them improve the roster, but I don't really know what realistically they're going to get for Jay Crowder that turns them into a championship caliber team. If they haven't traded him so far, I feel like the market probably isn't that big for a 4 or 5-year-old player that refuses to play at the moment because he's not starting. That's probably going to tank his trade value quite a bit because Phoenix has no choice but to deal him since he isn't going to play this season. And once again, even with all those guys fully healthy and Jay Crowder being off the team and bringing in some sort of tangible asset, they still need a legit championship level second option. I don't see who they're going to get out there. I don't think they go out and trade for like a Zach LaVine or anything like that. And even then, I don't know if he truly is the answer for them. So there are some problems, and they could realistically end up in the play-in tournament. And in the play-in game, I do trust Devin Booker to get things done, and I trust Chris Paul, but the inconsistency of some of those other guys and the potential of facing a really, really tough team in that play-in matchup means that I think there's a real chance the Phoenix Suns are barely making the playoffs, even if they do. So basically, even though I've been a Suns believer for the past few years, until I see some major improvement in terms of acquisitions, I think this team is kind of dead in the water at the moment. And it's not just this season. They're in trouble for the foreseeable future as Chris Paul continues to get older and will probably retire soon. He's going to keep declining. We're not seeing any major development from a DeAndre Ayton. Maybe a trade package for like a Kevin Durant or some other superstar becomes available down the line to pair with Devin Booker, and they say, hey, we'll throw you Bridges, a bunch of first-round picks, or Ayton and a bunch of first-round picks. Maybe that's a way that they're going to save this tenure with Devin Booker and what they've got going on, but realistically, I think their championship window might have closed unless they pull something out of their hat. In some other league news, we had Raptors versus Blazers, a matchup between two teams that have really been struggling. However, the Raptors get a pretty big win in this one, winning by 12 points. They're led by Pascal Siakam, who had 27, 4, and 6. If he somehow becomes available at the deadline, teams are going to be throwing a billion first-round picks to try and bring him in because he's that good. Scottie Barnes also had 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. He's been putting together some pretty solid performances as of late. For the Blazers, their bench is absolutely brutal. They got good games from a lot of their starters, but they had just 3 points out of 30 total bench minutes from those guys down there, and those came courtesy of Shaedon Sharpe. Now, Sharpe, they are dealing with some injuries to say like a Justice Winslow and a Gary Payton II, but overall, the Blazers have to make some moves to fortify that second unit if they want to be taken seriously, because right now they're hanging out, like I said, below 500 next to the Phoenix Suns, who we just talked about for a while, and while Portland started the season really hot, they've absolutely come back down to earth. Then we saw Nets versus Heat, which saw Brooklyn get a really close win over Miami. They're led by Kyrie Irving, who had 29 points and 6 assists. Kevin Durant exited this one early when Jimmy Butler came down on his knee. It didn't look good, and I'm really hoping it's not what I'm expecting, and what I'm expecting is probably some sort of hyperextension that's going to keep him out, like say a month or multiple weeks, depending on the severity of that injury, but hopefully that is not the case. KD has been on an absolute tear and an MVP caliber run over the course of this season, so hopefully it's nothing major. I think he's supposed to get an MRI tomorrow, so I'll be on the lookout for news on that, and I'll keep y'all updated on Twitter, but for right now, we don't know what's going on. Hopefully it's nothing serious. I also want to give a quick shout to Nick Claxton, who I haven't talked about nearly enough on the channel this season. He's been an absolute monster, rising up Defensive Player of the Year leaderboards very quickly as well. He held Bam Adebayo today to just 10 points on 33% shooting. He's been a monster over the course of the year, as well as Brooklyn as a whole have really locked in defensively since Jacques Vaughn took over, but he's been the anchor of of that, so shout to Nick Claxton. He's really taking a massive leap and becoming a super critical piece to what they're doing in Brooklyn, and what they're doing is finding a ton of success. With the Heat, they struggled pretty badly offensively in this contest. Jimmy Butler led the way in scoring with 26 points, but he shot just 9 of 21. Like I said, with Bam Adebayo, he shot just 5 of 15. Kyle Lowry was 2 for 10. Oladipo was 2 for 10. You know, they've still been having a pretty good run as of late, but there are some clear problems, and in a matchup like this against a really good squad in Brooklyn, they weren't able to come out of it, although they did keep things pretty close, but Kevin Durant did get hurt, so you can take from it what you want, but this is not what you want to see if you're the Miami Heat. This was an opportunity to steal one from one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. There's still some pretty solid holes on this roster. And the final game I'm going to go in depth into is Grizzlies versus Jazz. Memphis got a big win that pushed them to the 1 seed now without Ja Morant. Desmond Bane led the way, who's starting to look more and more like the person we saw before the injury. He had 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists. Jaren Jackson Jr., while we talked about Nick Claxton rising up the Defensive Player of the Year leaderboards, Triple J is the leader at the moment, in my opinion. He had 19 points and 8 rebounds to go with 3 steals and 5 blocks. Absolute monster defensively. And Tyus Jones stepped up big in the absence of Ja with 21 points, 6 dimes, and 4 steals. In my opinion, one of the best backup guards in the league. I've said that over and over again, and games like this really prove my point. As for the Utah Jazz, they've now lost 7 out of their last 8 games, have really come crashing back down to earth after their really hot start, maybe opening up the possibility of a fire sale around the deadline for guys like Clarkson, Beasley, Conley, as well as some other names potentially. They've lost 6 out of their 7 games by 5 points or less too, which is heartbreaking if you're a Utah fan. It feels like the close L's continuously come, as we've seen with a lot of rebuilding teams this season. As a Thunder fan, I can speak to that pretty heavily. We have lost so many games right in the waning moments, as you typically see, like I said, from teams that are in rebuilding states, and the Jazz just can't seem to get things done. They did have a pretty solid game as a team, having 7 guys in double digits, but they did go down 10 points with 6 minutes left, and while they did make a bit of a push towards the end to come back, it just wasn't enough. To wrap up the rest of the games, the Thunder blew out the Luka-less Mavericks, led of course by Shea, who had 33 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 dimes, although a ton of guys contributed in a big way. Shout to Jalen Williams, who's been a monster as a rookie this season. The Pacers beat the Hornets, led by 29-9 from Miles Turner, who has reportedly not been too interested in discussing some contract extensions, so maybe he could be on the move at the deadline. The Wolves, meanwhile, beat the Rockets, led by D'Lo and Anthony Edwards, who combined for 43 points. The Sixers blew out the Pistons by 12 points, led by Harden, Maxey, and Montrezl Harrell, all of which had 20 points, with James Harden having a triple-double as they continue to try and stay afloat without Joel Embiid for the time being. And the Hawks beat the Clippers behind 30 points from Trae Young, as LA has now lost 6 games in a row. That's all I've got for y'all tonight. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. And go ahead and comment down below, what do you think about the Phoenix Suns? Is there a name out there on the trade market that you think they could go ahead and acquire that would make them true championship contenders? Or do you still believe in them? Are you still on the bandwagon, unlike me, who is at this point pretty much hopped off entirely? Let me know all that down below. I'll make sure to check out some of your comments. Appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, stay back.